Strouf with you live from the Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie, the winner of the Badger Club Burger Bracket out here partying on your Wednesday afternoon. We've got a nice crew out here, including Tiny Hands. Hunter Vaughn, I've never been so close to you because you're usually behind a wall and a glass wall, so I feel a little bit uncomfortable with you directly next to me, but I think
this is my first remote ever for ESPN Madison, so I'm like freaking out right now. I don't know how to handle this. It's just different for me. I'm so excited to be here. Love the Tipsy Cow. So great. Used to live right here. Or not here, but by here.
You lived in the Tipsy Cow?
Yes, I lived.
Nice.
I basically lived in the Tipsy Cow because I lived so close to the Tipsy Cow. My wife and I would come here all the time. Really excited that they won Best Burger in Madison.
Yeah, Best Burger in Madison. I'm going to have one after the show. Going to have a Badger Club to pair with it here at the Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. They're not open on Monday, so we delayed the celebration a couple days. We were going to come on Monday. We're here on Wednesday ahead of the NCAA Tournament, but a great crew out here supporting local business, supporting local burgers. Voted the best in Madison by you. We worked it from 64 all the way down to 1. And here we are at the Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. So good to be here. But a good signifier of a Wisconsin destination is whether or not you own a pull tabs machine. We have 6 subjects on the board. I've got 5 pull tabs. So as we work our way through each subject on the board, I am going to pull one of my pull tabs throughout today's show. So as we introduce the winners of the Best Burger in Madison, Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie, we go to pull tab number 1. Let's see if we can start with a winner, and we do not. Oh, 0 for 1.
You went to the pull tab machine before you even said hi to Molly and I.
Yeah,
that's how excited you were about
correct.
the pull tabs.
Well, I had a $5 bill burning a hole in my pocket, and I saw you and Molly Brand, who's been on the show many times, in here getting things ready, setting it up. And I immediately pulled out the $5 bill, walked over to the pull tab machine, which is directly behind where our camera is set up, and now we're 0 for 1. So we'll keep you posted as we work throughout the show today. Want to get into some March Madness talk. Want to talk a little Badgers ahead of their matchup against number 12 James Madison coming up on Friday. Also want to dive a little bit into the Packers. I mentioned Monday we're in that second wave of free agency where some of the lower ticket items are available for the Packers on the free agent market if they so hope and wish to go that way. We'll dive into whether I think they should address some of their positional needs in free agency, or should they address it in the draft, or maybe both for each positional group. We're live with you on the ESPN Madison Facebook, YouTube, Twitter pages. Good to be with you on your Wednesday. Reminder, you can chime in on all those sites. Happy to read your comments and connect with you throughout the show today, and available wherever you get your podcast. If you got to tune us out or you're tuning in a little bit late, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Let's start with March Madness. We started with 68 teams last night. We're down to 66 as the play-in games, the first 2 games played yesterday. Was it Howard over Wagner or Wagner over Howard, Hunter? Let's see how good your basketball knowledge is. I watched the game. I don't know which one's which.
Wagner won because I remember seeing a graphic that someone thought the head coach's name was the Wagner Seahawks.
So Howard was working it down to the end then, and they got it within 2, and they had a couple shots at the end of the game to win it. Ultimately, they fall, though, and do not win that one. The game I actually gave a damn about, though, was Colorado State and Virginia. Obviously, Tony Bennett, the head coach at Virginia, the UW Green Bay alum, one of the all-time great players at UW Green Bay. Obviously, his father with a great history in Wisconsin basketball, which is all over the state. He's a national champion. He's a guy that lost for the first time ever as a 1 seed to a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. He's a guy with a lot of deep-rooted history in the month of March, and boy, oh boy, did his team lay an egg last night in the first 4, only scoring 14 points in the first half against Colorado State. And, you know, we talked about it a little bit on Monday, Hunter, with this bracket coming out, right? Like, who are some of the snubs? Who are some of the teams that maybe got in that didn't deserve it? And who are some of the teams that were left out, like a St. John's, like a Seton Hall, like an Indiana State with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robbie Avila. And, you know, we didn't really talk about Virginia as a team that shouldn't have gotten in. But I think if we would have dove deeper into it, we would have analyzed that Virginia shouldn't have gotten in, and then they proved to us last night why they shouldn't have gotten into the NCAA tournament.
Well, my problem with Virginia is even just the fact that you even said Tony Bennett got this deep history in March.
Right.
You know, he's so great in March. He's made it out of the round of 32 one time.
And that was the time they won the national championship?
Yes.
Really?
I pulled it up. This is his history. 2017, they lost to 4-seed Florida in the round of 32. 2018, they were the 1 seed. They lose to UMBC in the first round. They follow it up. They win the title. Then they go lose to Ohio in the round of 64 as a 4 seed.
Yep.
Then they miss the tournament in 2022. 2023, they lose again as a 4 seed to Furman, and now they lose in a play-in game. This guy is setting back college basketball for how terrible their offense is, and he's living off of one lucky season that they got a national championship.
Well, I don't know that
it's ridiculous.
I don't know that lucky is the right word.
With that tournament resume, though, it is.
I mean, yeah, but regular season Virginia's been very good, but they play a horrible
because they beat you
style.
up.
Yeah, they play a horrible style of basketball that I think the Times is passing them up at this point, right? Like the new era of college basketball at the transfer portal with name, image, likeness. It's all about like splashy players. Virginia's a team that develops players, right? And we're kind of starting to see Wisconsin, which is a comparable brand of basketball, move away from that, right? It's an offense that could actually score points this year for the Wisconsin Badgers. And Virginia, that's just still not the case for them here in 2024. So they fall yesterday. Indiana State, man, they got snubbed.
I hope they make a deep run in the NIT.
But does anybody care about the NIT, right? Like the Badgers made it to the last four. I don't think they call it the Final Four in the NIT, but they made it to the Final Four of the NIT, the semifinals last year. And we're Badgers, or I'm a Badgers fan. You're more of a Marquette Duke fan, but you also cheer for the Badgers. We cared because it's local, it's here. But is anybody on a nationwide still going to give a damn if Indiana State's still alive late in the NIT run?
If they run through it and win the NIT, I think then they do. Because then it's like, okay, they clearly were the best team in the NIT.
Sure.
They should have gone in. Same thing for Seton Hall. And it's good for these teams also to get those extra games and practices. But, like, if you can just blow through everybody, then I think you have a case to make of saying, hey, you guys genuinely screwed this up.
I think it's too little too late, but I guess we'll all find out together as the NCAA tournament continues, and obviously the NIT tournament continues tonight. Two more first four games tonight. The 16 seeds Grambling, Montana State will go head-to-head in Dayton. That is a 5:40 p.m. tip locally on True TV. And then following that one up, the game I actually think is the best in the first four. Colorado and Boise State, two 10 seeds, go toe-to-toe tonight. That is, like I mentioned, about an 8-10 tip. It will follow Grambling and Montana State. You've got less than 24 hours, though, to join the ESPN Wisconsin Bracket Challenge presented by Cousin Subs. Go on the ESPN Tournament Challenge app or online, ESPN.com. Click Tournament Challenge. Just search ESPN Wisconsin, the ESPN Wisconsin Bracket Challenge presented by Cousin Subs. They believe in better. All you got to do, enter the group code COUSINS, all lowercase letters, COUSINS. First place entrant wins $1,000 in gift cards to Cousin Subs. Again, that's on the ESPN Tournament Challenge app. Search ESPN Wisconsin. Group code COUSINS. First place wins $1,000. I'm going to attempt to win a quarter of that right now as we move on to pull tab number 2. Can I win $250 on pull tab 2?
What do you need for $250?
Like, what's the thing? It's the pink bows for breast cancer because this is that is the cause behind it. Anyway, I opened it. I lost again. We're 0 for 2 on pull tab. So not a good start. Maybe Rutledge can bring us some luck when he joins us shortly. But first, I want to talk a little Badgers because they're getting ready for what is viewed as maybe the most picked 12-over-5 upset in the South region. It's 12th-ranked James Madison taking on the 5-seed Wisconsin Badgers Friday night in Brooklyn. No sleep till Brooklyn, as they like to say. Great tune, by the way. Shout out to the Beastie Boys. No?
It's fine.
Okay, whatever. I don't like your negativity on that.
Sorry.
But nobody picking a 12 seed over a 5 more currently than James Madison over Wisconsin on Friday night. And I understand the hype around a team like James Madison, right? They are tied in the tournament, the entire field, for most wins in the regular season leading into the tournament. 31 wins for James Madison. They have a big win. Their biggest win on their resume was opening night of college basketball when they beat, at the time, 4th-ranked Michigan State. But Michigan State had a total fall from grace early on in the season, losing like 3 of the first 4 games. They fall out of the AP poll after being a top 5 team, and they never reappear. They end up in the tournament this year as a 9 seed taking on 8th-seeded Mississippi State later this week. But James Madison resume isn't all that sexy. They're a good team. They're well coached. They've got some veteran players on their team. They can score the rock well. They score more points per game than the Badgers, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, James Madison is James Madison. They're a low mid-major. and have crazier things happen in the tournament, of course. But I really do believe Wisconsin is playing their best basketball here as they enter late March. You look at their resume in the Big Ten tournament. They beat the number 3 team in the country, who's a 1 seed in Purdue in overtime, despite a 27 free throw discrepancy in that game because if you breathe on Zach Edey, you may get arrested for assault.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's gross.
It is unbelievable. And I don't think that's how Purdue will be officiated by any means in the NCAA tournament, right? Like, I think the Big Ten officials are going to officiate Zach Edey a little bit different than maybe the officials in the NCAA tournament will when they face, obviously, the winner of Montana State and Grambling, who play tonight. They'll play them in the first round, but then from there it's either Utah State or TCU. Those are 2 solid programs. Gonzaga, Kansas still likely in their way despite Kansas dealing with some injuries, and I think both of those teams I just mentioned are going to lose in the first round after further review. I think we're going to have a little McNeese, Will Wade versus Samford action, 12-13 in the second round. Those are my upset picks. After we did the instinct bracket on Monday, I'm leaning towards now that will no longer look that way. So anyway, that's a total side note here for a moment. But nonetheless, I do believe that Wisconsin and James Madison will be a competitive game. I think it will be close, right? And that's the thing we've learned about Wisconsin over the course of this year is they play down to their opponents, but they also play up to whoever they're playing. So the NCAA ride for the Badgers, whether that's 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, or ultimately what you want it to be, 6 games, they're going to be close games. I just don't anticipate seeing Wisconsin doing to, let's use James Madison as the example, what they did to Maryland early on in the Big Ten tournament, which was a big 30-point-esque win. I just don't see that happening over the course of the next couple of weeks. Shall be at the Badgers still alive after opening weekend, which they haven't been since 2017. Greg Gard has been the head coach since the late 2015-2016 tournament was his first, made the Sweet 16. That year, made the Sweet 16 in 2017. The Badgers haven't been back since then. So this is a big March as well for the head coach, Greg Gard. He saved his job. I think the seat cooled down with a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, right? Wins over Purdue and Maryland and Northwestern and getting to the Big Ten tournament championship game against Illinois. But I think he still needs to make that second weekend for the Greg Gard haters and doubters that there are a lot of, especially on that gross app we know as Twitter, the cesspool that is X, that doubt Greg Gard. He still has to prove them wrong. And I think getting to the second weekend, and you would likely have to beat Duke on your way there in the second round, I think that would do a lot for his longevity in Wisconsin, which, as I've always said, I'm a Greg Gard apologist, probably to a fault. But I think he's a really good college basketball coach. I think he's come along really nicely in the new era of name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal. Shoot, look at their leading scorer, A.J. Storr, only a sophomore from St. John's from a year ago. He didn't want to play for Patino.
No?
Apparently not. I don't know. That's why he transferred, I would assume. But we will see as the Badgers get ready for James Madison on Friday. Elsewhere in that bracket, though, Marquette taking on Western Kentucky, Hunter. Do you feel as if Marquette wins big?
I don't know if they win big. I think it's going to be – well, I think Tyler Kolek might be on a minute kind of time management situation for him just because it's going to be his first game back.
Don't you think they took the Prude approach, though? Like, I feel like he might be a full go now, tournament time.
I think so, but I also think there's a level of, like, going into a media timeout, they might do the NBA thing with him and pull him just to give him a little bit extra rest, that kind of a thing going into that game. I'm more worried about that second-round game. Florida worries me because they rebound well.
Sure.
And then history says if you win your play-in game, a lot of times those teams end up making a solid run. So that's where I'm very concerned about that 10 seed.
Yeah, going to be Colorado. I think Florida without their big man who snapped his leg, compound fracture the other day in the SEC championship game. I think they'll probably be eliminated early. I think Colorado's playing good ball, but we'll see them play tonight against Boise State in the first 4 matchup. But I do think, right, like Marquette does have a nice path, especially to the second weekend, something they haven't done in a very long time. They do have probably one of the easier paths. Now, you earn that, right, as a 2 seed. You play worse competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marquette certainly has a nice path to weekend number 2, but that's where they would match up with a team like Kentucky being the 3 seed in that region, who they would see later on. So I'm really excited for hoops, right? Like tomorrow you get into a full-blown hoops coma, which is incredibly exciting, and you let it ride for the next couple of weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and You got 3 weeks of college basketball as we count it down from 64 beginning tomorrow all the way down to 1, just like we did here with the best burger bracket. And I see some of the voted best burgers in Madison.
It's making me really hungry.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the end of the show, although I do love doing this show.
You know, I did want to say before we move on and talk some Packers, you know, I think a big part of the narrative around Wisconsin being an upset pick is also more played into the fact that betting has become so much more prevalent.
Yeah.
The 12 seeds typically do well against the spread against the 5.
Yep.
So you get that conversation happening. People are looking into their brackets. They're doing research. They see that being brought up, and people assume that that means it's the head-to-head victory. And while usually at least 112 does beat the 5, it's also more of a, the 12, in this case James Madison being 5.5 point, or excuse me, 5.5 point dogs in this game. People saying, bet that because even though Wisconsin would win, that's a good line to be at, and they're expecting it to be like a 2-3 point loss.
Yeah.
So then that's where some of the confusion can come in on it. Also, if everyone on ESPN is saying, Wisconsin's going to lose this game, I would fade that on my bracket. I'm probably going to, just because if every expert is saying it,
like
it's the same thing with the NFL. If everybody picks one team, it usually doesn't happen. So I'm going to definitely fade the experts, and I'm taking Wisconsin. I just have a weird feeling that this is one of those years they're going to make a run. I feel like it's going to happen.
I like hearing that. Yeah, I mean, look, there is something to be said about playing your best ball in March. You take a loss in the Big Ten championship game. I think that motivates you. And the meme that's been making the rounds, this week, was Chucky Hepburn. Have you seen this, Hunter, when they were announced that they would be the 5 seed taking on 12 seed James Madison? He was stone-faced. Everybody else was cheering, recording, posting it on their Instagram story. And Chucky's just got one hand over his face, locked the hell in. And rightfully so after a loss to Illinois Sunday in Minneapolis. So just a little fun with spreads before we get to the Packers. You mentioned it. Badgers are 5.5 point favorites going into Friday's matchup with James Madison. Marquette, double-digit favorites, 14.5 over Western Kentucky. The biggest spread of the weekend, unsurprisingly. UConn over Stetson, 26.5 point favorites. I almost want to bet Stetson plus the 26.5 just because that is such a ginormous spread in the NCAA tournament.
Plus, it'd be so great. We talked about their mascots. I actually know what Stetson's mascot is. They're the Hatters.
The Hatters?
They're the Hatters. Click on their logo right now. You're on ESPN. You'll see the hat in the S.
Oh, yeah.
See it? Yeah.
What does that even mean? The Mad Hatters?
Well, I mean, Mad Hatters is a reference to people that made hats, so I'm guessing that's what it has to do with. But, yeah, that'd just be so great to make some money off of the Hatters.
Yeah, it would be. Wait. Why would it be so great?
That'd just be funny.
Okay. You have a weird sense of humor, man. What else do we have for spreads coming out Friday? I'll take a look at Thursday in a minute. Auburn favored by 12.5 over Yale. I like Yale in that game. I know I told you that the other day and you thought I was stupid. Houston over Longwood by 24.5. We have to discuss Longwood for a moment. So,
are you bringing up what I sent you?
Yeah, I'm bringing up what you sent me.
Okay.
So there's a meme and a joke that's been making the rounds this week in relation to what's the right word here? Phallic jokes?
Yes.
Teams with phallic names, right? St. Peter's going on a run a couple of years ago. They beat Kentucky. 2021, it was Oral Roberts who beat Ohio State, who was a 2 seed in the first round. And, of course, last year, Fairleigh Dickinson beating Purdue. So there you go. Phallic jokes. And Houston facing Longwood. Something to keep an eye on here in the opening round.
If it happens 3 times in a row, it's no longer a coincidence.
But St. Peter's also in the field again. They're 15 seed taking on 2 seed at Tennessee, who I really like in this tournament. So you do kind of have double opportunity here in the first round for a big upset with a phallic name.
Yeah, to actually get into basketball, St. Peter's is young this year. They were a veteran team when they did it.
I like that you know this.
So
no Dougie buckets.
Yeah. So that's where I kind of lean towards. I'm going to go Longwood if I'm going to go with a phallic upset.
You think I don't think Houston's falling that early, but we will.
But if I'm picking between the two.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Longwood over Houston. Are you going to? You're not making that pick.
No, I'm not dumb.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I'm immature because I find it funny and I sent it to you, but I'm not stupid enough to pick a 16 over a 1.
We usually do what Strouf Learned on this program, which we will do a bit later, but Joseph S. on YouTube chiming in. Last evening I learned the Badgers have 17 top 100 wins this season. James Madison only has 1. for whatever that is worth. And that, of course, would be over Michigan State in the opening night of college basketball way back in November. Do we finally have a winner on the pull tabs? No, we do not. We are 0 for 3
pain
on the pull tabs. All right, let's talk a little Green Bay Packers as we gear up here in the second round, essentially, of free agency. The Packers getting ready, for the NFL draft. And I said on Monday, Hunter, we'll start looking ahead to the draft probably next week, as we're just about a month away from the NFL draft in Detroit this year. This is where the NFL draft is. And I know I shouldn't throw stones here because the draft coming to Green Bay next year. I just don't know how much of a draft destination a cold weather climate is. I know Kansas City had a great one a few years ago. Was that last year, 2 years ago?
But, like, this time of year, my wife and I went to Kansas City. I mean, it was mid-April. But, like, the weather gets significantly warmer, at least for Kansas City. Yeah, Detroit, unless they're keeping it all inside Ford Field, would not want to be outside all weekend for the draft.
Yeah, that's fair. We will see, though, with the draft coming up in a month. But I just still want to take a look at some of the Packers' needs. There are still some holes on this team, which is incredibly young. I saw somebody tweet it last night, and I apologize. I can't credit who tweeted it. But something about how nobody on this Packers team was alive in 1992 when the Packers traded for Brett Favre. But that's because nobody on the Packers is over the age of 32.
Yeah.
Right? Or is 32. I think there's only one player left over the age of 30, and I think that's Preston Smith. Maybe the punter. Is Pat O'Donnell still the punter? But other than that, everybody under the age of 30, which is good, right? I mean, I think we saw last year from the Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst that the youth movement works, and his wicked plan to get really young worked. And that was something that I think will continue here into 2024, where a lot of these needs will be addressed through the draft. Now, he did address some needs through free agency, although one of them wasn't viewed as a big need, right? At running back, Aaron Jones is coming off the best 5-game stretch of his career to end the 2023 regular season and the postseason against Dallas and San Francisco. They sign a young Josh Jacobs for 4 years, $48 million, which I think is a worthwhile investment. I think he's got a lot of tread left on the tires. He's more durable than Aaron Jones was last year. Aaron Jones missing several games. I think it was 6 games in the regular season last year. So I understand the durability factor with Josh Jacobs. I still question if that was a necessary move. I like the move. I think it's an upgrade, but it still is a questionable one. Defensively, Xavier McKinney, the safety formerly of the New York Giants, coming in. It's a position of need. It's a position with no depth at all right now. So, obviously, that's a big splash. And to have him and Jair Alexander pairing up in the defensive backfield, ooh, baby, is that a sexy addition for the Packers defense with the brand-new defensive coordinator, Jeff Halfway. So, something to keep an eye on is that safety position. But I want to run through each positional group. Hunter, I'll have you throw them at me. I'll tell you whether I think they should address it in the draft, in free agency, or in both. You can start wherever you'd like.
We're going to go with the curveball to start. Place kicker.
Free agency.
Okay.
You got to bring somebody in, right? No, I know you're joking, and I actually am glad you brought this up because Anders Carlson was bad in his rookie year. They used a draft pick on him, and we know Goody is very loyal to his draft picks. So I would anticipate that Anders Carlson is still the kicker in 2024, but I would like to see them, obviously, and they did, actually. I think that was their first move of the offseason was signing a kicker. There's another one on the roster right now, right?
There is.
Jack Podlesny, I believe his name is, was signed in January. They signed him right away after the brutal San Francisco game that it was for Anders Carlson. But I would like to see them address that in free agency, and hopefully, if Anders has not significantly improved, move on from him.
Okay, we'll go on defense next. Cornerback.
Yeah, quarterback is a draft one. I would be shocked if they make a splash. And look, I think we're kind of past the point in free agency where you're making quote-unquote splash moves, right? I don't think you're bringing in a huge name at this point regardless. You might bring in a depth piece and to look at defensive back overall more so than just cornerback with your question. To use examples from last year, you think of guys like Jonathan Owens and Rudy Ford that were brought in on low-money deals at the safety position. I'd be fine if they did that at cornerback, but when you are likely starting, if you're starting 3 corners, and I'll bring up 4 names here, you're likely starting Jair Alexander, is your number 1 corner, right? That's a foregone conclusion. Carrington Valentine, the 7th-round pick from a year ago, will likely get some snaps. Eric Stokes, can he be fully healthy back from both the Liz Frank and then the hamstring injury? You sure hope so, but you don't know that for a fact. And then they bring back Keyshawn Nixon, the all-pro kick returner. He wasn't great in the slot last year, but the thing is with the slot corner position is it is probably the hardest position in the NFL to be very good at. Great slot corners don't really exist in the league, and where they do, teams lock them up for a long time. So it's really hard to improve, despite that Keyshawn Nixon's tenure as the slot corner was rough. It is really hard to improve at that position. So I would like them to get some corner depth in the draft, but if they take a small swing, just hit for the single or maybe bunt for the single in free agency, I'm fine with that as well at corner.
Now, I'm not going to make you go through every single piece on the O-line, but interior line. Do they go any? What do
it's
they
going to
do
be
there?
draft, right? Because, I'm going to look at O-line as a whole. I don't know if you're going to ask about tackle because I do think they'll draft a tackle.
I figured we'd keep it separate, but, yeah, we can go all of O-line.
I'm just going to go all O-line, and I am going to break your rule by going through all of it. I'll keep guards and centers the same, though. But tackle, I imagine they'll draft on just with Rasheed Walker having a nice season last year in place of David Bakhtiari, but I don't know that they are sold on him as their starting left tackle. Right tackle, you are sold on Zach Tom. So that's a good note, but I would guess with Yosh Nijman, the swing tackle, leaving, you probably want to take a swing in the draft at that. Interior line, baby, you could use an upgrade. Am I the only anti-Josh Myers guy in the world? Like, I'm not watching a ton of O-line play, but I just know he stinks.
So I think
Might
Jesse,
be the Ohio State guy.
I think Jesse Nelson is kind of a closet anti-Josh Myers guy. Okay. I remember middle of the season, I was filling in on Wilde and Tausch, and he kept sending in an article about how bad he's been.
I went to middle school with his girlfriend. So I see a lot of adorable family photos of theirs with the. I think they have dogs on social media. So I want to be nice, but he's not a very good center. So you can keep him on the team. I just don't know that you want him to start. All right, there's your O-line talk. Move on.
Do they do anything at quarterback?
Maybe undrafted free agent, but I would guess no.
Okay.
Goody really likes Sean Clifford. Jim Rutledge is going to join us momentarily. Hates Sean Clifford. Goody loves him though. Goody says he could be – what are you going to say? But I saw Goody said a couple weeks ago that he thinks Sean Clifford could be a starter in this league, which is asinine to me. But I don't think they do anything there now.
Starter if there's an emergency injury for some reason.
Right.
Let's go edge rushers.
I like who they have there, right? I mean, Preston is obviously aging, but Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness was the first-round pick last year. I would guess they'll draft it in the draft, but I think it would be a late-round pick, nothing too crazy. You could use some depth there, and I guess with the defensive switch, J.J. Enagbare, Kingsley Enagbare, will technically be an edge guy who I have a huge crush on. I think he's going to be great in year 3 coming off of I think it was an ACL, so that's always scary for an edge guy, but I really like Kingsley Enagbare. I think they have good depth pieces there, but they'll address it in the draft.
Staying on the D-line, the interior, you've got Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt as your starters. They're pretty much locked.
And you really like what Carl Brooks did last year as a rookie. So I would guess, again, maybe a draft pick. But you have some good depth pieces there. T.J. Slayton as well, who was a starter last year in the old set of the defense. He'll still get some reps. Colby Wooden was a draft pick last year. To go back to what we talked about with quarterback, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a position group they don't touch until day 3 of the NFL draft.
Yeah, it would make sense. I mean, you really only need 3 interior guys in the NFL now. And then wide receiver, do they do anything? Same with tight end, really.
Yeah, same with tight end. I mean, and they actually made the decision on tight end, right? Because you have the 2 second-year guys coming into this year in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, but they also re-signed Ben Sims. So I think tight end's good.
Yeah.
Josiah DeGuara, by the way, I don't think is signed anywhere, but he is a free agent. I imagine he won't be back, but he could be, shall the situation present itself. Otherwise, no. I don't think you do anything at tight end. Wide receiver, undrafted free agents. Goody has actually found some diamond in the rough at that position group. Bo Melton off a practice squad in Seattle last year, who ended up popping off the page late in the year. So I actually would not be shocked if we see some UDFAs and maybe even one making the active roster, or you stash them on a practice squad. But through the draft or free agency, I give a big X to the wide receiver position.
And now the position group I think is the weakest for the defense, linebacker.
Oh, what about safety?
Well, I think Xavier McKinney, because of how good he is,
Sure.
It's just basically whoever you're going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, inside linebacker, I would like to see both, to answer your question. Maybe bring in a guy or 2 for depth through free agency, low-risk guys that nobody knows who they are, right? I would like to see them bring in those type of guys. I think Eric Wilson is technically still a free agent for the Packers. He hasn't signed anywhere. He's a guy that I would like to see them bring back. He had the big fumble recovery in the in the NFC divisional round against San Francisco on special teams. He's a good depth piece, but I would imagine that's one they attack through the draft as well. But Quay Walker, all-pro season incoming. You heard it here first. I'm really high on Quay Walker this year.
As long as he doesn't do anything stupid on the field.
He didn't this year.
I know, but I'm still like, it's going to be one of those things that's going to unfortunately follow him for a while.
Sure.
And let's see if he can stack years of not being dumb.
I would agree. Stack years of not being dumb. And then safety is the last one I believe we have on the board.
And then, running back.
They're done with running back.
You don't think they'll take, if Braylon Allen's on the board in the 4th round?
No, he's too similar with the back to the two they have on the roster right now, and A.J. Dillon or Josh Jacobs. They might bring in a speedster, maybe a better pass catcher. I take this back. They do need to address running back. Day 2 pick, speedster running back, Aaron Jones type guy. Good, not great in pass pro. Isaac Guerendo, RAS scores off the charts. He's a goody guy. So I'd love to see a guy like Isaac Guerendo get drafted. Because here's the thing with that halfback position, Hunter, is you have 2 similar backs now under contract, right? And I mentioned this earlier, and Josh Jacobs and A.J. Dillon. These are 2 guys that play similar ball. So to bring in somebody like a Isaac Guerendo, we'll use him as the example, I think might actually knock A.J. Dillon down to the 3rd back on the team.
Yeah.
Because you have 2 guys that do stuff so similarly. You don't need them, and talking with Jason Wilde yesterday when I was filling in on Rutledge and Hamilton, he anticipates the Packers will do more in between the tackle stuff, right, with 2 big bodies in A.J. Dillon and Josh Jacobs. But I would like to see them use a day 2 pick on an Isaac Guerendo type who is flying up the draft board. It's a good call on running back.
Well, and plus, too, if you go with more of a speedster guy, I haven't deep dove into this rookie class, but if there's somebody who a college has used at a wide receiver slot position too, you use him, and then it just opens up your offense even more for the different things that you can do. So that's where I do like that. And then, of course, to finish it up, safety.
Both free agency and the draft. I don't know what they're going to do. Who do they have under contract on the ESPN roster right now? Anthony Johnson Jr. for sure, Benny Sapp for sure, Xavier McKinney for sure. Zane Anderson, who I am not convinced is a real person, is under contract as well.
And then who's this Tyler Coyle? Who? He's from Purdue.
I've never heard of him.
He made 8 tackles.
All right, there you go. Maybe a special teams guy? They got to attack both. All right, judgmental Jim Rutledge going to join us in a sec to talk both Justin Fields, who was traded from the Bears, and a little Badgers. As I pull the 4th of 5 pull tabs, I'm still a loser. I'm 0 for 4 now on pull tabs here at the Tipsy Cow, which means you can increase your luck by coming to the Tipsy Cow. Use the one all the way on the left of the pull tabs machine if you do that. As Jim Rutledge approaches our nice makeshift table here at the Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. What's up, Jimmy? How are you?
I'm fantastic. I just had a Tipsy Burger, so
how was it?
I am full.
Best in Madison?
Obviously,
yeah.
Best in Madison. Best in Sun Prairie, since we're in the Sun Prairie one.
That's
but
true.
You have the original Madison one behind you.
I do.
This
nice photo. Yeah.
Here at Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie, but as advertised. And then I had the French fries with some truffle sauce.
Truffle sauce?
Yeah.
I'm eating after, so I'm very
That's
much looking forward to this. But I see the burgers coming around and obviously all the beers being poured. Shout out to our friends from Lake Louie and the Badger Club on tap here at Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. So we'll talk Badgers in a minute. I do want to start with Justin Fields because it was the story of the weekend, and obviously with the bracket coming out, I kind of buried the lead until I had the chance to talk with you. The league does not view Justin Fields as a starting quarterback, which actually surprised me because I thought a team would take a shot on him as a starter and maybe have him compete against a rookie. He's going to go sit behind Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh as they acquire him for a 6th-round pick that can turn into a conditional 4th.
Yep.
What's the condition on that if he plays 51% of the snaps?
51% of the snaps. Doesn't even have to be a QB. So,
what do you mean by that?
But I'm not even saying that he would be like a gadget player, but let's say he took 10% of the snaps as a gadget player and then Russell gets hurt with, 8 games left, 6 games left, he might still hit the 51%. So it's not specific to QB. That's all.
So do you think Justin Fields could be the next Taysom Hill?
That's disrespectful to Justin. I'm just saying that I think Pittsburgh will probably at least explore, could we – I wouldn't even say he'd use 10% of the plays. Could he use 10 plays total? Because his first start with the Bears, he actually ran a little bit of one. He came in and ran the option, a little bit of the read option, just as a different look. But then also was in the backfield with Andy Dalton and ran in a touchdown. His first NFL touchdown was against the Rams and ran it in. Because the Bears were going to use him as a guy like, hey, let's get him some snaps, let's get him comfortable, we'll do some read option stuff, we'll put him back there with Dalton, and we're going to use him as a guy that he can get comfortable as an NFL player his first year. That was the plan, then Dalton got hurt.
Interesting. Okay.
And it all went downhill for Justin from there.
Very interesting. So,
can I clarify, though, some of the stuff with you're saying about the not starter thing?
yeah.
So there's that, but there's also he has to, and this is what Chicago had, you have to make a decision on his fifth-year option in May. And so you look at some of the other guys who are traded in Pickett and Howell and some of these guys, they have 2 years. So you have 2 years of cost control as a backup QB to possibly put him as a starter. If you brought in Justin, even against like Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson, you had to immediately decide, do I want to make him a starter for 2 years and pay him $27 million in that fifth year? Because he's going into his fourth year. Now, teams could have, if they really believed in him, probably could have done what the Packers did with Jordan Love and try to work something out with Justin ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But I think that contract was also a major factor of it.
Yeah, that would make sense. And, you know, I think him going to Pittsburgh is a super interesting landing spot for him. And I think we talked about this a little bit on your show yesterday. But a change of scenery, is great. Go to a organization that has been very successful at that position, maybe not the last couple of years, but overall in their history. He can learn from Russell Wilson and maybe and likely eventually take over for Russell Wilson. It seems like kind of the best case scenario for him in terms of a second chance.
Well, Chicago did right by him. So the more and more reporting that comes out, it sounds like they possibly had a fifth-round pick option available to him to go back up an established starter. Russell Wilson is not an established starter in the NFL anymore, let alone with the Steelers. So my understanding is that Fields' representation kind of talked to the Bears and said we prefer to go to Steelers. That matters. His representation is athletes first, and the guy that owns athletes first represents a lot of people in the NFL. So Ryan Poles, I think, did the smart thing here and said, look, the difference between a fifth-round pick and a conditional sixth that maybe is a fourth is not worth upsetting one of the most powerful agents in the NFL.
Interesting.
So I think Justin's agent had something to do with his
How far down the rabbit hole
flex.
have you gone on this?
It's not that far down the rabbit hole, but just like Packers stuff, like it's just common knowledge for Bears fans.
Okay.
I mean,
I feel like the agent tie isn't common knowledge. Am I wrong on that?
I guess I don't know. But I'm interested in the agent
Well, of course,
stuff. Like
of
when you
course.
look at, with,
I'm not giving you a hard time.
yeah.
I just think you've really dove into this.
Right, but when the Packers were looking to hire a OC or a DC, anytime we've looked to hire anyone, it's always first thing I always say is who shares the same agent as Coach LaFleur or even Goody, because those are usually the first people that get hired. Those are the ones you have. When people say they're friends, it's usually because they shared an agent. Some of the signings that you made, it's because, hey, we've worked with this agent for a while, they've treated the team well, and we can bring someone here. And that's why I always find it interesting how the Packers have treated like Jordy and Devontae and Aaron Jones on the way out, because those agents get paid and they can hold grudges. So there is a currency there of how GMs handle agents with trades and with contracts matter in the long run. The most important thing, though, is picking the right players.
Yeah.
And obviously Goody's been great at that.
Goody has been really solid at that over the course of his tenure here, especially the last few years. Packers are in a really interesting spot. I mean, the NFC North as a whole is in an interesting spot. Obviously, the Bears, now with the number 1 overall pick, will bring in Caleb Williams. They acquire Keenan Allen from the Chargers.
And I wouldn't sleep on, Jared Everett?
Yeah,
Tight end.
Gerald Everett, also from the Chargers?
Yeah, starting tight end for the Chargers will be the Bears' number 2 tight end. They're going to run Seattle's offense, which I think Seattle ran 2 tight end sets more than any other team in the NFL last year. He added DeAndre Swift. And I wouldn't put past Roma Duze or Neighbors or Harrison. Seems like maybe he's fallen a little bit because he's not doing a pro day. One of those guys might fall to the Bears at 9 with with the quarterback up there. So the Bears, and then they've added 3 offensive linemen. None of them are studs, but they're all guys who have started in the NFL to kind of fill in some gaps.
Where do you feel like the Bears finish as it stands before the draft?
I think they're going to flip their record. So they were
10-7.
Yeah. I don't know where that puts them in the conference. That could very well squarely put them 3rd.
Yeah.
But I like 10-7 is where I see them sitting.
We both like Detroit. We both like Green Bay.
Yep.
Minnesota seems like the bottom team right now, despite having some of the best skill position players offensively in all of the National Football League. Right? You look at Justin Jefferson, you look at Jordan Addison, the way he came along in his rookie year, and obviously acquiring a pissed-off Aaron Jones.
Yep.
That's worth something. T.J. Hawkinson's one of the best tight ends in the league. I just don't know that Sam Darnold can be that guy, or if they get a J.J. McCarthy or a Michael Penix, that he can be that guy in year 1.
I'd be shocked if they don't take the 2 first-round picks they have and trade up to probably New England spot and take either May or Daniels.
Yeah. Yeah, I still don't know that a rookie quarterback, and I view Caleb Williams differently because I think he's the best quarterback prospect we've seen in a few years.
So, because on that point, I was just having a conversation with someone. The one-of-one guys, and Stroud was second, but then you have Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray. They all started right away, and they were somewhat successful. Their teams weren't successful because they went to bad teams. Now, what Minnesota is doing that's interesting, I agree with you on the rookie quarterback. Maybe he doesn't start immediately. But just like Chicago, Minnesota, you just listed it. Lots of talent at skill positions.
And that's what Chicago's doing.
Yes, and that makes the life easier for a quarterback.
For sure. And Chicago, better defense than Minnesota as it stands right now.
It's not crazy to say the Bears they'll have a top 10 defense next year. They were a fringe top 10 this last year.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. It makes me a little nervous. I like when the NFC North is good, though, and I've said this to you already, and now obviously more things have changed over the course of the last couple of weeks. But the NFC North is shaping up to be maybe the best division in at least the NFC, if not the entire NFL.
Yeah, I don't know if the math adds up, but I would put like the Lions at 12 wins, the Packers at maybe 11, the Bears at 10, and the Vikings at 6, maybe 7.
7, yeah.
Right in that range. Like that's where I'd put it right now.
NFC West will be good. Obviously with Seattle and San Francisco and the Rams, and we'll see if Arizona's any good.
Seattle's the wild card where I could see them, especially if they pick a quarterback. I think Penix would be great out there, just a lot of different reasons. But I could see them if they started, let's say, 2-4, 2-5, just going to the young QB at that point, and they've got a new coach and kind of not blow it up, but kind of they're in a weird transition. So I could see them almost take a step back to take a step forward. So if I was going to pick a team in the West that would kind of tail off, it'd be them. San Francisco and the 49ers, I think, are still Rams, are an ascending team, and the 49ers, I think, very solid. You
say take a step back to take a step forward. It's seemingly what the Wisconsin Badgers did in the month of February into the month of March. Horrible February. Decent start to March, and then they get to the Big Ten tournament. They have a great run, obviously making it to the championship game.
Wait. Decent start to March. Didn't they lose 2 out of their 3 to start
March?
But
they competed well with Purdue. They competed well with Illinois. Well, I'm not here for moral victories anymore. Yes. I was. When you're losing what? Would they lose, like 11 of 13 between February and the beginning of March? Moral victories are allowed then, I think.
Well, and those 11 of 13 losses, when you look at like the teams they were losing to.
Yeah, no, not good. Rutgers was the really bad one.
A little bit, yeah.
Rutgers on the road was the worst one. That was the one game I turned off.
Yeah, but
the rest
Nebraska,
of them,
like the way they lost that one was bad.
Correct, but at least they're a tournament team.
Yeah.
That's the excuse I'll make on some of these.
Yes. And then, there was – Rutgers was bad. Indiana's not great. That was not a great
loss. So, we talked about it earlier. Yeah. James Madison is being viewed as the top 12 seed. They are being picked over a 5 seed more than any other 12 seed.
Yep.
Have you filled out your bracket?
Yeah.
Do you have Wisconsin losing in the first round?
Literally the first thing I did is have them lose to James Madison.
That's the least shocking thing you've ever said.
I hope I'm wrong, but I shared this tweet. It's not mine, but this person actually nailed it. They basically said, watch Wisconsin make a run in the Big Ten tournament, beat Purdue, and lose the Big Ten championship by like 2 to 5 points, and then lose in the first.
I'm pretty sure I said something of that on your show as well last week, where I was like, Greg Gard's going to save his job this week, and then they're going to fall flat on their face next week.
I think they called it the Greg Gard equilibrium. Sorry, but that's how he goes. Like it's just that's how he keeps his job. It's just good enough. Now, I'm not saying you should fire him, but what I'm saying is that he's got like a cap, it's like a governor on him. Like we can only be so good. We'll get here and then we're done. Like that's it. We can't do it. I don't trust this team at all. Like Stephen Kroll comes and goes. Tyler Wall. They have Wall and Storr are their only. They're going to get their points, and really it's just Storr.
It's just Storr
because everyone else.
I'm not comfortable calling Wall that
because they can get points. Yeah. But you don't know which guys. There's too many guys that can get points. You'd rather have 3 guys. I'm going to get 13, 14 points out of this guy no matter what every night. And then we have a couple guys get us some points. The Badgers are like, Storr will get us 15. Everybody
else will just figure it out.
Stephen Kroll might take a shot all game, maybe one.
Same with Tyler Wall, though.
Right,
and you saw that a little
James
bit.
Madison, though, you read it they pressure, they defend the 3 really well.
They just haven't played anybody.
They just – right, that's always the knock on these teams until they beat everyone like FAU last year. They really feel like FAU last year. Everyone said FAU didn't deserve the seed, can't do it. Well, they got to the Final Four. And the Badgers are a team I think are ripe because they always play to the level of their competition, good or bad. And James Madison, they're a winning team. Whoever they're beating, they know how to close out basketball games.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, that's my concern. I think it will come down to the wire, and so maybe the Badgers can pull one out. But I really feel like James Madison's going to give the Badgers all they want.
What other games are you looking forward to? I have the bracket in front of you here if you want to take a look. Obviously FAU, your alma mater, taking on Northwestern, and Boo Buie, who I'm really high on.
He's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
I do think FAU
You can't see my first-round picks, so I do have Northwestern knocking off your Owls.
I do see that. That's, screw you. But
you picked James Madison over UW.
You didn't go to UW.
Yeah, but like my mom did, so I've always been a Badgers fan. I live here.
I'm a Badgers fan. Doesn't mean you have to be an idiot.
Well, they're a 5 seed. What do you mean I'm an idiot for picking them over a 12 seed?
I still can't believe they're a 5 seed. But
I think the Big Ten tournament run helped them. They would have been a 6 otherwise. But, yeah,
you're right. I think they should have been in an 8 and then gotten to a 6, in my math. So, 5 is whatever.
Plus, they had the Marquette win, too. That's propping them up a lot.
100 million years ago.
Yes, but it's propping them up a lot.
It is so.
It's dumb, but it is.
I know. That's what I don't like about college basketball. How does a victory from? And again, I go back to.
That's the case with James Madison. They beat Michigan State on the opening night. It's their only top 100 win.
They won their conference.
And didn't lose to anyone else. What do they got? 2 losses?
4, I think. 31-4. I think is the record.
That's part of it too.
Yeah.
31-4 matters. But my point is that when you beat a team a million years ago, especially for the Badgers, who, and I have this theory on the Badgers, and it's played out, and we'll see if it plays out again. They bring everyone back. Somehow everyone's always back.
Yep,
and so early in the year, they're the only team that has continuity because most teams in college basketball turn it over all the time. And though they're trying to figure it out, Marquette, all these teams, they're trying to figure out who they are. Badgers steal a few games early. Then everyone else kind of figures out who they are as a team. Then the Badgers go, hey, we're slightly above average. Everyone starts beating them. And then the Badgers make a little run late. And then they disappoint again.
It's true.
Because remember, they almost lost. They started to lose the thread on the Big Ten title with Johnny Davis. They pulled it out. Chucky Hepburn, I was there, hit a
huge shot against Purdue.
It was a prayer shot, but it was a good shot. It went in, and so that saved the conference, or saved that for them. And they went on to win 1 game at Pfizer Forum.
It's a home game
in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, in the NCAA tournament, and then obviously they missed it, and then they lose. Was 2017? I think that's the last time they went to the Sweet 16.
That's correct.
So that's
16 and 17, the only times Guard has done it.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, and I hope they do, and I think you hope they do too.
I missed the conversation when we used to say all the Badgers do is make the Sweet 16. Can they just make an Elite 8?
Yeah, that's fair.
We've moved the goalpost back.
It has moved back in the Great Guard era. You're right about that, but it's a different era of college basketball too.
It wasn't 5 years ago when he started.
That part's fair. That part's fair. But 7 years ago is when he was making the Sweet 16. It's been a couple years.
And one of those years, and I know he recruited those guys, but those were the tail end of I don't want to say Bo Ryan's guys, but that was the tail end of the Final Four group.
Oh yeah,
I mean that was Nigel Hayes, that was Bronson King. Those were winners.
Showy, yeah.
Yes,
no doubt. All right, rapid fire. FAU plays Northwestern. I'm assuming you're picking the Owls. Then it would be UConn FAU. Are you picking FAU?
No, I mean with my heart, yes, but not with my pocketbook. So no, UConn has what I like, which is they have pros. And they're doing really well in college. So it's not a team that's just loaded with pros. They have 3 guys.
So your Final Four is what? Kentucky, UConn?
No. It's definitely UConn. And then I have Zona, I believe.
Okay.
And then I'm going Houston. I'm just trying to look at this last little bit here. And then weirdly, I ended up with Tennessee.
Tennessee, Dalton Connect, dude. He's solid.
And that's the guy I was following. Again, a guy who's viewed as maybe a fringe lottery player.
Yeah.
I like NBA guys because they have an opportunity to show up.
He lit up the Badgers at the Kohl Center earlier this year.
I think you picked against St. Mary's.
I did.
They're playing basically a home game, so I like their chances.
Against Grand Canyon?
But they're out in
I just like Grand Canyon because I don't think any university in the United States spends more advertising money than Grand Canyon. They're on every commercial break on cable ever.
I'm guessing they saw your GPA and said this guy is a prime candidate for Grand Canyon. So it's targeted ads. But I've never seen them in my life.
Oh, come on, Hunter. You've seen the Grand Canyon.
I have, but I'm in the same boat as you. Terrible GPA. So.
Okay. Maybe it is. Ryan, Ryan Wollersheim is back in the Everlight Solar Studio producing the show for us today. Ryan, you are a proud grad of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Do you see Grand Canyon commercials, or are you too smart to see those?
Oh, I mean, I love the Antelopes. They're my sleeper team in the whole thing.
Well, there you go.
He did not answer the question. So clearly he does. Based on your answer, you get a lot of ads served.
Yeah, I follow him pretty closely. I'll say that.
You get to deal with that every day from 4 to 6.
Oh, yes. Lucky me.
Lucky you indeed.
Thank you.
I have Marquette going far.
How far?
I believe Elite 8. I think I'm losing
They used Houston? Yeah.
Bring out Ahoya.
Has done something we haven't seen here in the state of Wisconsin in a while. Since Bo.
Shaka hasn't been to the Sweet 16 since he was the head coach of VCU.
I know, but he also got to the Final Four of VCU, is my point.
Fair.
I think this is the year.
I think you're probably right. I think Marquette's a really good team this year. Tyler Kolek's healthy, which I think he is. Stop letting Hunter hear that, though. All right, Jim, we'll listen to you 4-6 on Rutledge and Hamilton. Thanks for stopping by the Tipsy Cow in Sun
Can I
Prairie.
ask you a question?
Yeah, go for
Who's
it.
going farther in the tournament? Because that's the question we're going to ask today on the show. Marquette or Wisconsin?
Marquette.
Yeah.
I think Wisconsin will get to the Sweet 16. I just really want that revenge game against Duke. And I know it's not a revenge game in any sort. The head coaches are different. None of the players are the same.
But then when Duke beats them again, like it's embarrassing. It's like a revenge movie where the hero gets their ass kicked at the end.
Oh, I like that analogy.
It's like
that
Roadhouse, except Swayze is the one that is beat up.
Swayze gets
It's
the
Rocky
roundhouse
2,
kick
but
to his
Rocky
foot.
loses again.
Right, yeah.
Oh,
Rocky's the
man.
one that dies at the end of Rocky 2.
Was that Rocky 2 or Rocky 3? Then?
Rocky 3,
Apollo
Mick dies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apollo dies in Rocky 3.
Mick dies in Rocky 3. Apollo dies in Rocky 4.
No, Rocky 4 is where
Apollo fights Ivan Drago and then gets killed in the ring because he won't throw in the towel.
No, that's Rocky 3 because
No, it's
Rocky
not.
avenges his
No,
death.
no,
in
Rocky
Rocky
is
4.
Mr.
Do not
T.
tell me.
3 is Mr.
But
T.
Do
Rocky
not try
4,
and
Rocky
correct me on
avenges his
Rocky.
death.
No. Rocky
Same
3,
movie.
he fights Clubber Lang,
Yeah, Mr. T.
loses to
Oh,
him.
it's the same movie?
No.
No.
Does Apollo die and Rocky gets his death back? Does he beat Ivan Drago?
Apollo dies
This
in
isn't
4.
Stella get a groove back. Rocky gets his death back. No, it is 4. Because also the math never works out for if you look at it like this to get deep into it. The movie Creed.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, Apollo, like Creed is then Creed the fighter's like 30.
Oh, yeah, you're
But
right.
it's not. He's not 30.
But that's his son, right?
But it doesn't make sense. People don't start fighting at 30.
Oh, that's true.
So that's my point.
Michael
is
B. Jordan is in that movie, right?
Yes.
He's a handsome guy.
He is.
Okay,
You're
great.
trying to
And
change
a
the
good actor.
subject that you were completely wrong.
Wait, so is it the same movie that Apollo dies and then
Do you want
Rocky
me to lay
beats
out
Ivan
all the
Drago?
Rockies
Yes.
for
No,
you?
I just
That's
want to
the
know if
same
it's the
movie.
same movie. Is that all in
Same
Rocky
movie.
4?
Yes.
That's the best Rocky in my opinion. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
That's Jim Rutledge. You hear him on Rutledge and Hamilton weekdays from 4 to 6 on ESPN Madison. All right, time for my final pull tab. And I lost again. I went 0 for 5.
That's tough.
That is tough. It is what it is, though. All right, you learn something new every day, as did I. It's time now for What Strouf Learned as we wrap up Miss a little bit live from the Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. All right, I got to take a look at this because Matt Norlander does a great job covering college basketball for CBS Sports. Put this out on Twitter today. He asked all 68 teams, or all 68 head coaches in the field of 68 in the NCAA Tournament, who their favorite musical artist was. And he put together 4 graphics with the 4 regions of everybody's favorite musical artist. So I want to start with the Wisconsin coaches first. Greg Gard picked Luke Combs, the country music artist. That
That's
surprised me.
It's surprising, but
I
it's
didn't know he
on
was a country
brand
music
for
guy.
a Wisconsin coach.
I didn't know he was a country music guy, so that surprised me. Shaka Smart, unsurprisingly, Tupac.
Oh, so on brand for him. That's my coach.
However, if we
love
were
that.
if we were to do a matchup of the coach's favorite musical artists against one another, Western Kentucky Marquette might be the biggest barn burner in all of the first round because Steve Lutz, who's the head coach of Western Kentucky, the late great Jimmy Buffett, who died this year. Jimmy Buffett
I didn't know he
versus
was a
Tupac.
parrot head.
He's a parrot head. Steve
That's
Lutz, the
awesome.
head coach of Western Kentucky. By the way, Mark Byington, James Madison's head coach, Pearl Jam. I'm taking James Madison in that bracket, although I'm not a big country music guy.
Then he has to show up wearing flannel.
I
Got to
just-
go the full grunge look on the sideline.
And then I just wanted to look at some of the other ones that surprised me. There was a lot of Michael Jacksons in there, but this one took me by surprise. John Calipari, he picked Drake because Drake is a bandwagon Kentucky fan. Thought that
He's a bandwagon music fan then.
I thought that was funny. John Shire from Duke also picking Drake. Is he a Duke guy, Drake? Is he also a Duke? I don't know. if
He's
that's
whoever's good fan.
Where's Gonzaga? Mark Few took me by surprise. Mark Few from Gonzaga. I believe he picked Taylor Swift, which I just would have never guessed. Yeah, Mark Pope of BYU is who picked Taylor Swift. Mark Few of Gonzaga. Who did he pick? I remember that was a memorable one as well. But now I'm losing it here in the list of
I
68.
think it's right
There
there.
it is. Luke Combs as well. So never mind. I was thinking of BYU who picked Taylor Swift. Mark Pope. I don't know. Is Taylor Swift big amongst the Mormons? I didn't know that was a thing.
Do you think I would know what's big amongst the Mormons?
I don't know. I have a friend that lives in Salt Lake. I guess I could give him a phone call. Also, Morgan Wallen, I think the most popular choice in that. So there you go. Matt Norlander from CBS Sports, who does a terrific job releasing that. You can find that on Twitter, at his Twitter, at Matt Norlander. A big thank you to Jim Rutledge for hopping on today's Mr. Relevant to talk about all the shenanigans, including the Rockies. Big thanks to Tiny Hands for not sweating on me, spitting on me, or sneezing on me throughout the entirety of the show, because typically I have him in a cage behind a glass wall. I let him out today. You did a great job. You behaved very
Thank
well.
you.
And a big thanks to everybody here at the
That's kinda
Tipsy
rude.
Cow in Sun Prairie, the winners of the 2024 Best Burger Bracket, brought to you by Badger Club at Lake Louis Brewery. A big win for Tipsy Cow. I'm going to go eat a burger and drink a Badger Club as we wrap up the show. We're back with you on Friday as we lead you up to tip-off between the Badgers and the Dukes of James Madison. We'll talk to you then. This has been Mr. Relevant, live from Tipsy Cow in Sun Prairie. Peace.